Warning, this podcast brought to you by a sports team fanboy living here in Miami. Would like to remind you that during this podcast you may hear swearing, yelling, ranting, a whole bunch of other stuff your ears may not be prepared for. Your discretion is advised. Hello, Miami. Good evening, and welcome to the very first episode of the Miami Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Wolf, or you can call me Mr. Wolf. No relation to Dr. Wolf, for any reason you ever get that confused. In this very first episode, I'll talk the latest sports, scores, news, and analytics of our favorite South Florida sports teams. Miami Heat, the Miami Dolphins, the Florida Panthers, and if I get the chance, the Miami Marlins. First off, I'll talk my general feelings about each and every individual sports team that I come across. First are Miami Dolphins and how the season's going so far, and what I believe, hope, and expect by the time they finish the season this month. Next, I talk about my favorite sports team of all, Florida Panthers. And last but not least, I'll talk about the Miami Heat and my general feelings and expectations for this season and how I feel like about how they're doing this season so far. And our first docket for today is on the Miami Dolphins. If you all witnessed this past week, on Monday night, the Dolphins have able to beat the Patriots in a very spectacular fashion. Unfortunately, they cannot carry that win over the Buffalo Bills. Jay Cutler, for some reason, able to turn his best game into the most awesome game of the year, and then not do anything at all. Honestly, for difference between the Dolphins game, the difference between that game and the Patriots game and the Bills game is that Cutler showed more effort on that game than the Bills game, and I gotta say that's very disappointed. It could be the cold weather, it could be something else, but I am shocked that he wasn't able to do much as he's able to. But I gotta say, it's tough to defend this guy if he keeps on making strong mistakes like that interception at the end of the Bills game. I gotta say, that's not how I wanted the game to end. After on that spectacular successful onside kick recovered, and we had the ball for less than 30 seconds, I at least like to see us try to win that game. It's very disappointing. I mean, I may have probably the one of few people who actually liked Jay Cutler to be with the Miami Dolphins when Tannehill go down, but it's tough to defend this guy if he keeps on making mistakes like those. Despite all this, I still believe we have a chance to make the playoffs. We have to win. At very least, we have to win the next two games, certain key losses for certain teams, and we're in, despite an 8-8 record. I mean, I've seen teams with worse records than that get into playoffs. The Giants, if I remember correctly. But no team has to be perfect. Our next docket for today is on the Florida Panthers. I've been a fan of the team since 06. I first saw them play in 03 though. I became a full-fledged fan in 06 moving on. Probably missed a season or two for the past 10 years, but still with them all this time. So far this season is a very, very strange one indeed. Even though they score a whole bunch, their offense is very awesome, and they just somehow able to score a lot on offense. Their defense is very weak. I've been keep hearing that the reason that our defense is off because of the line changes and all that stuff. It's very disappointing so far. During today's game versus the Vegas Knights, our former coach, Gallant, sorry if I'm saying that name wrong, got his revenge. Yeah. He's living the dream at Vegas. And frankly, I would be pretty happy about that too if I were him. Even though I wasn't outspoken about his firing during mid-season last season, I gotta say I would have waited until the end of the season to see what happens. I mean, the guy took us to the playoffs one year and not doing so well the next. Hopefully, during this upcoming week, The Panthers can get back in winning mode, hopefully. I'm probably the most optimistic Florida Panthers fan you've ever hear in your lives, and that's the truth. Next up, we have the Miami Heat. Been a fan of them for quite a while, though. Despite them having that few years of LeBron, I knew that wasn't gonna last. I knew in my heart, as soon as we screw up, he'll leave us. So far, the Heat are probably the only team at South Florida that's somehow showing a winning stride. I gotta say, I was very disappointed that they didn't make the playoffs last season, like going 41-41 last season, and still not make it. I don't like the tiebreaker procedures in the NBA. I think we should at least have a one-game playoff. I truly believe we would give the Cleveland Cavaliers a run for their money if we were given a chance in the playoffs last season. But here's the funny thing about the Miami Heat. Eric Spoelstra is the Miami Heat's most winnable coach, even passing Pat Riley. Well, 10 years with the same team can do that to you. Especially if you're the only one in the East has a longer tenured than 4 or 5 seasons. He has 10 going next year, I believe. And I support him. I hope that, if he gets a chance, he can do well in the playoffs despite not having key pieces like he did when he won his first 2 championships. Yeah, so hopefully that would be cool. Alright then, thank you very much for listening to this very short podcast. During this upcoming week, I'll be watching several games that both Miami Heat, the Miami Dolphins, and the Florida Panthers will play. I'll give you my thoughts and analysis of what they do so far and what I hoped. Honestly, like my expectations, Miami Dolphins going to the playoffs despite the odds against them. For Panthers, my expectations, well, at least do well enough to win more than 2 games. In Miami Heat, well, in my opinion, I believe they will go to the playoffs this season. All right then, thank you very much for listening to this very first episode. I'd like to thank you all for listening and tune in. This is Stephen Wolf. And be safe.